The Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by these great sponsors. Are you looking to value your equipment more accurately, target the right buyers and close more deals, reach your ideal customer? Then look no further. Fusable isn't just about ag data, it's about action. Our best-in-class solution empowers you to value your equipment accurately, make informed decisions, and find the perfect prospects. Ignite your dealership's growth at fusable.com/movingiron-podcast. Out in the field, every decision counts. You wouldn't plant without testing your soil, so why would you prospect blind? Introducing EDA, your one-stop shop for ag equipment intel. EDA goes beyond specs and prices. You get deep dive data on every piece of equipment like UCC filings that help track ownership changes and uncover potential sales leads. D&B firmographics, which help you understand the financial health and buying power of potential customers. Market trends that help you stay ahead of the curve, and insights on equipment demands and pricings. With EDA, you're not just looking at data, you're seeing opportunity. Find the right buyer, sell smarter, and build lasting relationships. Visit edadata.com for your free demo and unlock the power of knowledge. For over 80 years, Iron Solutions has been your go-to data source for ag dealers, lenders, and manufacturers. Get powerful appraisal and value forecasting tools that fuel profitable decisions anytime, anywhere. Get your free demo at ironsolutions.com. Iron Solutions, confidence in every click. Today, there are many ways to finance ag equipment, but nobody delivers simple, fast, or flexible financing like AgDirect. Learn more about your options to buy, lease, and refinance equipment at agdirect.com. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours.
When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. I got Alan Hoskins back here again from American Farm Mortgage talking about what's going on in the world of, ag banking, So, Alan, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Casey. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Doing real good. So I had an interesting thought process today as we were getting ready for the show, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain on a little something here and get your feedback on this. And this is something that I've often thought about when we're looking at a down cycle. I don't know if down cycle is probably the right word for right now, but it's obviously the price of used equipment is something that's in flux right now. Mm-hmm. You look at where things were during COVID, and if you had it, you could sell it for what you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And there's a line of people to buy it because there was a lot of on-farm income and a lot of COVID money out there on top of good crop prices and everything else. Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of cash floating around. And so today some of that, the majority of that premium is getting washed off of those pieces of equipment. Mm-hmm. So I guess, Alan, the question I have for you is, when you are looking at balance sheets and assets and all those kind of things, how often are you stepping back and taking a look at that, saying, all right, cool, let's go through your assets and make sure that we're not overstating value or understating value. We're not we're keeping up with kind of where things are in the marketplace, and we're taking a hard look at what the overall value of what you have on your balance sheet is. How often are you doing that? What's that process look like?
Well, Casey, we want to look, and I think this is somewhat an industry standard, at an absolute minimum annually is when those items need to be reviewed. Now, one thing to keep in mind, bankers should not be mandating the values that are on the financial statement, because ultimately that is the financial statement of the borrower, and they're the ones signing the financial statement that they're agreeing with the values. Also, as part of the discussion, this is where value provided to the customer by the lender can really be determined, because if that lender has a fairly decent knowledge of the used equipment market, they're going to understand that the discussion with the producer that has that 1-year-old tractor is probably going to sound vastly different than that producer that maybe has that 15-year-old tractor that's about 2,000 hours. And we know that there's solidification, if you will, still on the good older equipment, older 15 years, if you will, equipment line versus what we've seen with the newer models. But I think when the lender sits down with the producer and just asks questions about, tell me a little bit about your values, the reasons behind the values, as opposed to the lender looking at something necessarily and saying, I don't agree with what you have here. Because there may be a reason that producer has that particular value, and that's where the lender needs to be listening more than speaking as it relates to that particular discussion, at least initially.
Gotcha. Okay. So when I come to sit down and talk with you, and you know what's going on in the marketplace, right? And you've seen the cascade of values on used equipment. Some certain models of used equipment are in more of a free fall than others. When you're looking at those, do you ever have the conversation with a customer that says, hey, you know what, we should probably, 6 months into the year or 3 months or every quarter or something like that, let's take a look at where we're at just to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what that equipment is? I mean, do you go through that process where you're looking at maybe multiple times a year, maybe more than once a year at values, or is that something that you just try to stick to once a year on?
There would definitely be times, Casey, where an additional visit about the values could be beneficial to both parties, where you have either significant downward or, for that matter, upward movement within the marketplace. I think it's good for folks to understand how that looks in their financials, because Casey, as you and I have talked before, I'm a huge believer that financials are not a one and done type item annually. That producer needs to be looking at that balance sheet on no less frequently than quarterly. Monthly in many cases is not a bad thought. And just for their own mindset, making sure that they understand what the true market value of that equipment is. So yes, I think, Casey, it's definitely a value to look at more than once a year if the producer is willing to have that discussion, particularly if you consider that maybe that balance sheet is done in February or March prior to the line of credit renewal. And then let's say going into July or August, that producer's thinking about some type of a trade, be it a combine, be it a planter, grain cart, something that fall, and being able to ensure that they know where the market values are on those items they're looking at trading, and also making sure they understand where the market values are on the item to be traded for. So I think that's a good tool to discuss throughout the year. And candidly, most producers like having that discussion from the standpoint of equipment is something that they do take pride in, and they do enjoy the discussion about that particular piece of equipment.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about this a little bit. I think this is one of those situations where you see this once a year. You get an opportunity to market your crop at a profitable level. I'm not saying that we're at a profitable level for everybody right now, but when you're looking at where we're at now, you're hitting almost $7 wheat. You've got, we're heading up against some resistance level in corn. If you look at where the corn market's at, I just pull it up here. So, soybeans closed down today a little bit at $12.15 for the July. And then you had corn. Where did corn close at? $4.58 for the nearby. You start looking at out to December, you're getting closer to that $5 mark. You're not quite there, but you're getting closer. When you start having conversations with folks now, this is one of those opportunities where, looking at your plan, what your marketing plan looks like, and what your break evens are, and those kind of things, and start looking at some of this as the market starts to kind of come up here a little bit. All indicators show that it's going to should continue to move up unless something crazy happens between now and harvest. But if you're looking at these kind of situations, how are you handling these conversations with customers about, hey, here's a good opportunity for you. Take a look at where we're at now, and then look at some of the stuff we're doing that could offset some of this balance sheet pressure that you're seeing with maybe some movement in your pricing structure for your commodities that you're working.
Casey, the conversations now, I hope, are sounding more like something along the lines of when you put your marketing plan together back in February and March, how close are you to your target price of where you wanted to sell? Because candidly,
right,
as we tape this, it's May 21st. Guys have been planning for over a month for the most part. Most of them have had a focus on other things, and candidly, that marketing plan should have already been put in place at least 60 days ago.
Sure.
Because they would have known their break evens at that point, and the trigger points of where they wanted to begin making profitable sales should have already been determined, particularly if you consider the fact that there were some very valuable lessons learned with the 23 crop year, and that there were some marketing opportunities that weren't taken advantage of as quickly as they should have been in 2023, with the benefit of hindsight. And I really hope, Casey, those discussions are sounding more today along the lines of how close are you to some of your strike prices being enacted. And also, once you've got the sales on the books, how much difference is there before you're looking at doing something as far as maybe rolling contracts, something of that nature, to also capture some additional upward side?
Yep. Yeah, no, I think you're right there. So I think this also comes into a time frame when you're looking at, we're planting season right now. It sounds like we're depending on where you're at, you could be getting enough rain, not flooding rain by any means. Well, some parts of the country are getting flooding rains, but kind of in the heart of the corn belt there, there's just been enough rain to keep guys out, and they kind of wait a couple of days and it gets rain again. And they nothing crazy, but just enough to keep them at bay a little bit. When you're looking at those kind of scenarios going through your post harvest kind of wrap up in your mind, when do you start thinking about, I'm gonna start thinking about updating a piece of equipment here, updating a piece of equipment there? When in your mind does that make sense to do that?
I think whenever you get through, whether it's planting season, whether it's harvest, I think those are the times that you can really do an effective job of analyzing what does my existing unit look like, what are the things that I know need to be done to it, and what is the current market either on a new piece of equipment or a good used piece of equipment. I think the time to really look at it is right after this season, because that's when guys are still going to have it fresh in their mind, the issues that they dealt with, and probably be able to, whether, again, combine or planter, having the dealership go through it if that's what they want to do as quickly as possible, to make sure that they understand the cost is to continue to own that particular unit. I think that's the time, Casey, for them to do that, but because it also gives them the maximum available window to be able to do something before either the existing unit needs to have the work done to it and be ready for next year, or get that different unit acquired and be sure it's ready to go for the following.
Right. And I'm right there with you. I think when you're done with it, having it evaluated as far as if it's on your wish list, right? If you're depending on your trade cycle and those kind of things, if you're coming up, if you're within a year or two of your trade cycle, I think that's when you kind of start making that decision as to, what's it need to have, what's that, what's the cost to repair versus the cost for me to replace ratio, what's that start looking like, and what's that, how do those conversations be had? Because I've seen this happen way too many times, and where a guy will go spend a fair amount of money on a piece of equipment. It could be half as much as what the down payment would have been if they decided to trade it. To me, when you start making major repairs like that, and you really start going down that path, to me, you've got to run that at least one more season, if not two, to get your money back from what you spent, right? Otherwise, you're just you're throwing money out there. It's not bad money that you're throwing out there, but it's it's just one of those things where you have to pay attention to what that looks like. And I'm right there with you. I think as soon as the season's over with, whether it's planting season or harvest, depending on if you're heavy spring harvest or your heavy fall harvest, you really need to take a hard look at what you've got and start making those decisions as to what's that look like and where. And then ultimately it kind of comes back to, if you're in a scenario like we're in right now, and this is another conversation I like to have with people, how bad do you really want to trade it? Like how bad is it? I mean, how bad are you in a situation where maybe but it also depends on what you have too. But if you have something that's a 15-year-old piece, the marketplace is going to reflect. It hasn't really changed much, right? But if you have a 5-year-old piece, that's a different story, right? So you start looking at where those things play in there. That's another great key factor in that, where are you at? What are you doing? And does it make sense right now? Because if you can run it for one more season, who knows what mid 25 is going to look like, end of 25 is going to look like when you start looking at values and where things are kind of settling in that. Because right now, I mean, it's a buyer's market, right? I mean, you're getting some deals out there. So to see some relatively speaking, you're seeing some deals pop up out there. So again, I think they made a good point there, Alan, where what's the market look like right now you're trying to sell into, and what's it going to do for us? So those are some key things to pay attention to.
And, we started out the discussion today talking about where values are trending. The other thing that I think needs to be factored into that, it's the inverse of a similar conversation we were having 2 years ago, and that's relative to insurance coverage levels. 2 years ago, we were seeing a lot of folks that were probably underinsured. Today, I think looking at that equipment value, and again, if you're having the dealership come out and look at that combine after harvest is over, or that planter after spring is over, looking at where you are on insurance values and making sure that you're adequately insured, not excessively overinsured, is something that does need to be looked at, because there's been a lot of discussion. We've seen insurance rates certainly trending upward, and there may be a cost savings opportunity that allows that producer to still be very well insured, but not necessarily paying the premium level that they're paying today. So I think that also needs to be considered as part of the discussion. And if you've got a planter and say you're going in completely redoing it, again, making sure that you've got the correct insurance as part of having that done is pretty darn important.
Right. So this is another thing from your perspective as a lender, and how basically kind of backs up a piece of equipment. What are your thoughts on extended warranties, and how do you think those play into a buying decision?
I think it's definitely a case-by-case basis, because you have some folks that have different plans as far as time of ownership. I think even, Casey, depending upon the part of the country you're in, for example, if you're in the northern Midwest where rocks are a little more prevalent, I think certainly there's different considerations based upon where you are. I think that overall working capital of the operation plays into that as well, because can you withstand the cost of replacing an engine in a combine out of existing working capital? Or does that extended warranty help basically ensure that your working capital is not going to be adversely affected should some type of a major malfunction occur? Right. I think extended warranties
I think that's
are something that it's definitely a discussion that should be had. and weighed out the cost versus benefit. And I get that no one has a perfect crystal ball, but I think it's worthy of consideration.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Last thing here, Alan, then we'll shut it down.
Mhm.
As you look out through the remainder of 2024, the Fed had decided to hold on interest rate movements and didn't really make any real promising statements that they were going to do anything, just move interest rates any direction in 2024 after that last Fed meeting. And when they started the year out saying, hey, we might do it up to 3 times this year. What's your gut feeling telling you right now about interest rates? Do you think they're going to keep things the same through 24 and look at it in 25, or do you think there might be one movement down in 2024 yet?
Well, Casey, I think when we talked about this a couple months ago, I think what we talked about was trying to outguess the Fed was a little akin to insanity, because
Yeah, you're right.
they have knowledge we don't have, and B, their crystal
That's right.
ball's about like ours. And
Yep.
I was at a conference last week where there was an economist speaking that said if you went back about 3 months ago, the Fed had indicated that over the next 2 years they could see as many as 9 rate changes. And now that number was significantly less. And Casey, I'm still of the mindset of, when it comes to interest rates, trying to manage interest rates to minimize the effect on the operation regardless of movement is still the best policy, because I certainly don't have any business whatsoever predicting where interest rates are going to be at any given time. But I know this: if I can put a plan in place today that I can live with, and it gives me the opportunity to possibly reprice some rates if they go lower, I think and protects me on the upside should we see any upward movement, because obviously inflation's becoming a little stickier than I think they initially planned. So
Yeah.
I think just trying to manage the margin of interest rates versus predict where they may be still is the most solid policy for producers to employ.
Sure. Good policy there. I've looked at that a million ways, and I've talked to I don't know how many people about this, and I've got some people that still think they're going to drop it 3 times, and there's some people that said they might raise it before they drop it again. So, and it's it goes both ways. And like you said, if I could figure that part out, Alan, we wouldn't be talking right now. I'd have an island someplace.
I'm reasonably sure that I could pick either side of that discussion. I could probably pick interest rates going lower and find ample data to support my belief, or conversely, I'm pretty sure I could pick rates going higher and find data. The trouble is the data that I'm finding going to be the most reliable data? And we're obviously in an election year, and Casey, as it relates to this year's election, something that I think this year is going to have something that we've never seen, to the best of my knowledge, in the United States. And that is, regardless of who wins the election, there'll be a lame duck president. I'm not sure we've ever had that position.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And they're gonna do what they need to do to get their agenda pushed through to the last minute. So that is going to be true. So, all right, Alan, good conversation. If folks want to reach out to you, get more information about what you're doing at American Farm Mortgage, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. My email address, Casey, is ahoskins@AmericanFarmMortgage.com. And my cell phone number is 618-926-0463. They're more than welcome to reach out to me. Always love to hear thoughts and ideas of others. I learn a whole lot more when I'm listening than when I'm speaking, so I always enjoy listening to folks.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yes.
Right on. Well, Alan, I appreciate you being the podcast. We'll talk to you again next month.
All right. Thanks, Casey. Appreciate it very much.
Right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast. And you can check us out over on TikTok at Moving Iron Podcast. Also, the video version of this at the YouTube channel. Go to movingironllc.com for everything Moving Iron related. And if you're listening to this and you're looking for a little help with your used equipment processes or sales processes, or even on the parts and service side, I've got a little consultant group that I've put together, and we can help you with that. You can just hit me up at Moving Iron Podcast at movingironpodcast.com, and I can get you some more information about that as well. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Alan Hoskins. Let's move some iron, folks. Out. Our podcast is brought to you by these great sponsors. Are you looking to value your equipment more accurately, target the right buyers and close more deals, reach your ideal customer? Then look no further. Fusable isn't just about ag data, it's about action. Our best-in-class solution empowers you to value your equipment accurately, make informed decisions, and find the perfect prospects. Ignite your dealership's growth at fusable.com/movingiron-podcast. Out in the field, every decision counts. You wouldn't plant without testing your soil, so why would you prospect blind? Introducing EDA, your one-stop shop for ag equipment intel. EDA goes beyond specs and prices. You get deep dive data on every piece of equipment like UCC filings that help track ownership changes and uncover potential sales leads. D&B firmographics, which help you understand the financial health and buying power of potential customers. Market trends that help you stay ahead of the curve, and insights on equipment demands and pricings. With EDA, you're not just looking at data, you're seeing opportunity. Find the right buyer, sell smarter, and build lasting relationships. Visit edadata.com for your free demo and unlock the power of knowledge. For over 80 years, Iron Solutions has been your go-to data source for ag dealers, lenders, and manufacturers. Get powerful appraisal and value forecasting tools that fuel profitable decisions anytime, anywhere. Get your free demo at ironsolutions.com. Iron Solutions, confidence in every click. Today, there are many ways to finance ag equipment, but nobody delivers simple, fast, or flexible financing like AgDirect. Learn more about your options to buy, lease, and refinance equipment at agdirect.com. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is proudly provided by Axon, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. Find out more at axontire.com. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here.